Hello guys, welcome back to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. I am back today with a solo episode. In the last 2 weeks, I did an episode with Shaq. I did 2 episodes with Shaq where we spoke about my own personal training program and we really broke down all of the exercises and the reasons for the exercises and what we think about with them. And I think that would just be a really interesting episode, or both of them, would be really interesting episodes for all of my gals that are super interested in training and building their strength, building their physique, all of those things. If you haven't noticed, there's a bit of a theme where we're talking about that in the last few months, I would say, probably through like late Feb and then all through March. That's been a really hot topic just because it becomes quite a focus for a lot of my girls as we start to head out of summer and as we start to head towards winter. That is a great time to focus on the muscle gain and the strength and all of that sort of aspect with your nutrition and training. Obviously, if you still have a fat loss goal or that's your main focus, then it's awesome to keep focusing on that too. But the girls that like to sort of get into the good routine of spending some parts of the year focusing on fat loss and some focusing on muscle gain or performance, we tend to shift to that performance and gaining focus around now. So I love to just speak to what's really common and what's really prominent with a lot of my girls just to make it make sense for what everyone's up to. So hence all of the training and muscle gain chat over the last few weeks. But like I said, those 2 recent episodes were just a real focus on training. And I thought it would just be cool to actually use my own program as an example to really explain why we program certain things in certain orders with a certain focus and all of that. We've spoken about that a lot throughout the years over the podcast, but I think using a real program as an example was just a cool little way to mix that up. So if you are interested in training and really like the program and the structure behind training, the last 2 episodes would be great to go back and listen to if you have not. Today, I'm going to keep the muscle gain chat going, and today's topic is going to be muscle gain mistakes. So the mistakes, or like the common things that I see happening that kind of cock block, for lack of a better word, people who do have a muscle gain goal and some things get in the way and they don't really achieve it. I think there's a few common things that I've seen and I wanted to speak to those today. And the other little thing I'll say on that note, guys, is we did the episode probably about 3 weeks ago now about toning. And I love that episode. If you are interested in toning or toning up, whatever you want to call it, definitely go back and listen to that one if you haven't, because I think when we say the term muscle gain, some people can think, I don't want to be huge, I don't want to be jacked, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, so I don't need to, I don't want to hear about muscle gain. That's not an interest to me and that sort of thing. So if that comes up for you, just know that that is super common. But on the same note, if you're someone who has a goal to be lean or toned and have a good physique in that way, we actually do want to have some muscle gain happening to really optimize that look and that progress. So definitely go back and have a listen to the toning episode if you don't understand that, because I think then it can help change our minds a little bit about muscle gain being this big, scary thing that we don't want to do. It's actually an awesome thing that most people would really benefit from doing at some point to really achieve the physique that they want. But I think with the muscle gain chat, I said this in those episodes with my mum. It's a bit of a trip down memory lane right now for the podcast, but I said in the episodes with my mum, usually the girls that want to do a gaining phase, they know. Like, it's one of those things where you want to do it or you don't, in my opinion. It either really appeals to you or it doesn't. And I think the cool thing with it, like really appealing, I think 5 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever, it didn't really appeal to many people. And the more we've educated and spoken about the fact that a toned physique is just a physique with a bit of muscle on it, people are becoming a lot more open-minded to that muscle gain phase and starting to think like, oh yeah, maybe I do want to do this, which is really cool. So if you're someone who's considering a muscle gain phase or a performance phase, really the way I think about it and the way I see it is, if we are not in a calorie deficit and actively pursuing fat loss, but we love nutrition and training, we want to keep killing it in the gym, we want to keep building our physique or our strength or both, we tend to then say, okay, cool, am I going to go into a bit of a performance/maintenance phase? So I don't really want to push a massive muscle gain phase, but I definitely want to eat a bit more, lift a bit more, and build my physique a little bit in that way? Or do I actually want to cross the line and go into a surplus and start packing on a little bit of muscle, which is just fucking cool and exciting? So if you're someone who's thinking about doing this, obviously we're running the gaining/performance phase in Eat Like Ruby, which is just fucking awesome. I am so excited. I've spoken about it so much in the last few weeks, so I will not keep harping on about that. But I honestly just love the space. I love the energy. I love the mindset that people are in. I love watching the shifts that occur, like physically with the body, but just also all of the mental and mindset benefits that come with spending time out of a deficit. Really what it is spending time out of a deficit, but still really prioritizing your nutrition and training and watching yourself grow and progress in another way. I just think it is so cool. It's so cool to be a part of and so cool to watch. So I won't keep harping on about that, but I want to talk about the mistakes that I see people making, whether they come into Eat Like Ruby and they make these mistakes and we sort of have to call it out and navigate it, or you're trying to do muscle gain on your own. And I often see people kind of go through some of these cycles. So one of the very first things I'm going to talk about, we haven't spoken about this too much directly on the podcast before. It's in relation to training, and obviously we speak about training all the time, but this specific thing I think we need to speak about, and I think a few people need to look at, and it's training intensity. And the reason I've got this, I've literally got a list today of things I just want to talk through. This is number one on the list, because if we think about wanting to build our physique or improve our performance, training intensity has to be solid. Like, we cannot grow muscle or grow strength or both of those things if we're half-assing our training. If you're just in the gym kind of fucking around, faffing about, playing on your phone, doing a few reps, not really feeling it, but I don't really feel it today, and I'm just going to sit here and kind of cruise through a session, we're not going to push to the limit. If we think about everything we've spoken about on the podcast before and everything we know about training, we need to push to certain levels and close to failure and hit that progressive overload point, and we want things to be hard and challenging. Like, we've spoken about that so much. If we don't then go into a session with the right intensity, we're not going to reach those points, and therefore we're not going to optimize those things. So this is the number one thing that anyone who wants to build their physique, improve their strength, build their booty, shape their legs, build their shoulders, tone up, lean up, any or all of these things, if you've got this goal through winter, training consistency and intensity needs to be a no-brainer. And I'm not going to harp on too much about consistency, because that's so obvious. We know if we want to build those things, we need to be in the gym doing it often, right? We know this. But when we think about intensity, I think it's so common for people to just kind of chill a little bit too much in the gym. And if this is not you, like, I feel like it's one of those things where you know if it's not you. If you're like, I'm not chilling, I'm fucked. Like, you know that. But if that's not you, have a little think now, like, am I kind of cruising a bit in the gym? And it's usually not something we've brought a lot of awareness to, but bring the awareness right now and just think, if I'm not like really getting after it, I probably need to ramp it up a little bit. And some of the things I see here, and this is what we haven't really spoken about on the podcast before, but again, I feel like this is one of those things where some people will hear this and be like, as if you would do that, but then there's actually a lot of people doing it. What I'm talking about is doing things like leaving the gym early, leaving some exercises out and being like, I'll do them tomorrow, and just not actually following through on a complete training session. And the reason this is such an issue when we have a muscle gain goal, if we think about everything we've spoken about with training on the podcast, we know that we want certain exercises to work together to form a complete session, to then form a complete week in a training program. Everything is very structured and very intentional in a training program. If we then do half of it and say, I'm going to go now, I'll do the rest tomorrow, we've absolutely fucked that structure. Like, for lack of a better word. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because that's actually true. If we want to think about a lower body session, I'm going to talk about the glutes because we've used this example before, so it'll be good to kind of reiterate with it. We want to factor in lower body push movements, lower body pull, thrusting, bridging. We want shortened exercises, like exercises where the muscle works through a shortened range. We want exercises where the muscle works through a lengthened range. All of these things factor into a training session to form the complete session. If we have a session with 4, 5, or 6 exercises, let's say it's got 5 exercises. If you do 3 and then go, I've got to go now, I'll do the other 2 tomorrow, you've only done like half of those things that we want to form that complete program. And they do all work together. I'm not going to get too sciencey or too off track here, but we really do work through all those length and ranges and through all those movement patterns for a reason, because we hit muscles in different ways and in different ranges, and we want the combo of all of those to form the complete session. And then we know that there's sort of two issues that happens here if we do half a session and then we do the other half tomorrow. We haven't ticked off a complete session, so we haven't worked through all the combos like I just said. Like, we haven't made the most of that actual training session itself. But also, if we think about what we know to be true, where we want to train to a point where we then break down muscles and we enter that recovery process. Let's say we train legs or glutes on a Monday. We do half the exercises. We're starting to dabble, like we've broken down the muscle fibers in some ways. We're starting to dabble in that recovery. Then we go to gym on Tuesday and go, oh, I'll do those other 2 leg exercises that I didn't do yesterday. While the legs are in recovery, you've done half one day, you've done half the other day. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And you guys have probably heard me say a million times about the benefits of structured training. Like I just said, we absolutely fuck the structure when we do this. So it's just really important to keep that in mind, that all of the exercises work together to form the complete session, and all of the sessions work together to form a complete program. So we want to adhere to that as much as we can. And a little bit off topic, but on this note, when we think about the gaining or the performance phase, like I've said recently, it's a certain type of individual that wants to do this. It doesn't really appeal to the masses like fat loss does, like weight loss does, and that's totally fine. But when we think about a muscle gaining phase, or someone really wanting to commit long term to building their physique and their performance, usually this wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have those thoughts and be like, I really want to commit to this. I love this. This is very much a priority and a lifestyle for me. But also I'm just going to fucking tap out early. Like, you're either one or the other. So I think it's cool to clock. If you're someone who is kind of messing with the structure of training and just like, oh, I'll leave early, I'll catch up tomorrow, all of these things, I would just kind of tap in and think like, what is my priority? What is my focus? What is my goal? I don't want to shame and I don't want to act like this is wrong, but I think we can kind of be in two minds where we're like, oh yeah, this is really a priority to me. The way I see all of this, and again, I don't want to shame, but if it was such a priority, if you are leaving the gym 10 minutes early or whatever because you've run out of time and you'll catch up tomorrow, get up 10 minutes earlier. If it is such a priority, literally get up 10 minutes earlier, problem solved. And if you hear that and think, no way, I already get up at 5, I'm not getting up at 4:50, again, totally fine. Get up at 8 o'clock if you want, I don't care. But then really catch yourself in like, okay, is this a priority to me? Because I'm not willing to get up 10 minutes earlier. And it's just, I think, important to become aware of the thoughts and the habits and really get clear on what is my priority, what is my focus, what direction do I want to go. If you hear all this and think, no, I don't have a muscle gain goal and I definitely don't want to get up 10 minutes earlier and I don't really give a shit, Rubes, that is totally fine. Like, no shame, no disrespect at all. But then you want to meet yourself where you're at and think, okay, I want a program and I want things in place that then actually do suit me. I'm not getting up at 4:50. So I am getting up 10 minutes later. How do I make my training work with that? And like, because it's like I always say, there's no right or wrong, but you want to be understanding and aware and accepting and think, okay, what is my goal? What is my focus? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? And then how do I actually make that work from there? But like always, she's gone off on a tangent. So I'm going to bring it back to the training intensity and really just catching yourself in that and thinking, if I'm chilling at the gym and I do have a goal to improve my physique or my lifts, do I need to just ramp it up a little bit? And the one last little thing I'll say kind of on that structured intensity chat is changing, like making random changes to your training program just because you see an exercise and you think, yeah, no, I don't feel like that. I'll do something else. If you're doing this is where I think it's super important to talk to the person who's written your program. And if you're in Eat Like Ruby, that is me. And just be like, Rubes, I'm thinking about subbing this in for that. What are your thoughts? The thing we want to catch here is we don't want to just let ourselves be like, oh, I don't like that, so I'm not going to do it. We're not going to love every exercise. We're not going to just be frothing every single thing in the program. But so we don't want to just give ourselves that free pass to be like, no, I don't like it. What can I change? But I feel like over time with training, you do start to see what lifts you really love, what you do really well, what maybe doesn't work that well for you, whatever. Like, it's natural and common to have things that are better than others in our training. So what I'm getting at there is, if you're aware of these things for you, take it to the person that's written that program. And like I said, just be like, Rubes, I want to sub out this for this. Does that make sense? Or I really don't feel the benefit of this exercise. I don't think I do this well. Maybe I should send technique videos. Hint, hint, way more people need to send technique videos. But really have that chat and say, okay, if I am going to sub something out, I want to make sure that it's correct and it's a smart substitute. If we think about everything I just said, where all the exercises work together to form a complete program, if you make a random sub, you could really miss the mark and then miss a lot of the benefits of the session. So that's just a little bit of a side note. But training intensity really was my main factor that I just wanted to hone in on. If you do have a goal to build any of the things that we've spoken about today, you really want to just make sure you're like going into the gym focused, you're ready to just turn it up a notch and really push it. And now I'm going to move on to my second point on my list. The next few points kind of all tie in with each other, but we've spoken about this a little bit before on the podcast, but I think it's worth mentioning in this episode because one of the biggest mistakes I see with people that want to do a gaining phase, build their physique, build their strength, all of the things, I'm going to say this a million times, but is having that goal, having a bit of a plan, getting excited, going into that phase, having a day where they feel a little bit shit, they feel a little bit, quote, fluffy, as people say. We all know I hate that word, but this is where the word fluffy gets used more than anything, is a person that's gone into a gaining phase, feeling quite good, has an off day where they are then like, I feel fluffy, fuck it, I'm going back to my deficit. I spoke about this a little bit in the episodes with my mum about the fact that she felt like she would have done this had she have not committed to a program or a coach or something that was there to step in when you do want to run back to your deficit. And this is one of those things that is so common. So again, if you can relate, you're definitely not alone, but this will just absolutely cockblock a gaining phase like nothing else. This and training intensity, they're probably up there on par. But what we see happen here is let's think about that. If a person does go into a phase, they've increased their calories, they've written the program, everything has been structured and put in place to work towards the goal and move in the direction that they want to go. If you then wake up, you have an off day, you think, nope, fuck it, I don't want to feel like this, I'm going back to my deficit. You then go back to the deficit for a few days. The plan, the structure, everything that you had is now done a big 180. You're moving in a total different direction. What usually then happens is we start to come down, like we come away from that fluffy feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, like we're chicks, we're humans, we know we're going to have good and bad days. We start to come away from the bad day and then we start to think, you know what, I did have a muscle gain goal. I did want to increase my calories. I did want to spend time out of the deficit. I do want to grow my booty. That's a huge one. I did want to work towards all those things. Now I've done the big 180. I'm not. Okay, nope, fuck it. I will go back to the gaining phase. What was I thinking? Get back on track, get back to my plan, get back to my structure. And then people usually repeat that cycle over and over and over. If we think about doing a week, maybe 2, maybe 3 on high calories following your training, having a bad day, doing a 180, going into a deficit, changing everything, spending a week there, having a reality check, thinking, nope, wait, I do have a goal, back to my gaining phase, back to my structure, back to my high calories, back to my training, spend a week there. Nope, I feel like shit again, go back. If you continuously go back and forth between the deficit and the gaining phase, what tends to happen is if we think about a lot of people doing a gaining phase through April, May, June, July, maybe August, that's the ruby gaining phase. If we think about that being a 5-month window, if you go through this 3 or 4 week cycle of like high calories, low calories, high calories, low calories, we step back and we look at 5 months that we've literally just bounced back and forth and yo-yoed and not optimized or achieved anything. And I see this so often. And what tends to happen here, I'm getting massive deja vu from like this time last year on the podcast, we were talking about this, but what can happen here is we spend those 5 months not really achieving anything, not optimizing anything. Then we get to August and think, okay, this is when I actually did want to pursue fat loss. Summer's coming, Christmas is coming, holidays is coming, all of these things. I'm feeling pretty shitty and like off myself in general because I've just had this shitty 5 months. This is when I did want to do my fat loss phase, but I haven't done the phase that I actually wanted to do in the last 5 months. And now I don't know what to do because I have spent time in the last 5 months doing the deficit and then pulling myself out. I didn't achieve the thing I wanted to achieve. Now I want to go into fat loss, but I don't know what to do. It's just so messy, and it just usually leads to that real like thing where we're just spinning our wheels because we haven't settled in and hit the consistency and the intensity and all of the things we know we need and the structure to really implement a successful phase and make the progress and the growth that we like initially wanted to make 5 months ago. And the other little thing that can happen there, I'm going to massively side note away from the muscle gain for a second. We've spoken about this a long time ago on the podcast, but it's worth speaking to here, is if somebody does that and kind of bounces back and forth through random calories and random phases and everything for a long time, and they don't really settle in anything and therefore don't achieve anything, when the time actually comes to pursue fat loss, if that was your initial plan, like I'm going to do gaining for 5 months and then fat loss as we come into summer, people then often feel pretty exhausted and over it going into a fat loss phase because you've spent heaps of time in the last 5 months kind of dabbling in that already. There is so much benefit. This could be a whole nother episode, but there is so much benefit, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally, spending intentional, consistent time out of a calorie deficit. I cannot speak to that enough. I know I've mentioned it all the time on the podcast, but I just cannot speak to enough what happens when a person who loves nutrition and training makes an intentional step away from a deficit and then stays there for a while. And like I said at the start of the episode, prioritizes their nutrition and training like they always do and like they love to do without fat loss as the focus. It is so refreshing. It is just such a positive shift to make, to think like I'm really looking after myself. I'm prioritizing myself, my nutrition, my training, all those things. But I'm not fucking watching the scale go down. I'm not obsessing over body fat levels and all these things. There's so much benefit that happens there. And what can then happen is super common. I've seen so many girls go through this. If we do have that prolonged time or that intentional time out of a deficit, let's say we spent the 5 months from April to August out of the deficit, killing it in the gym, eating well, just loving life. Usually when we get to a fat loss phase, if we've got an intentional fat loss phase in place on the other side of it, we are like chomping at the bit to do the deficit. And that is so underrated. If we think about the example I just said before, where a person has kind of fucked around for 5 months and then they get to the deficit and they're already over it before they start, versus someone that's just spent 5 months very clearly away from it. When you get there, you're like, let's actually go. Like, I'm so pumped. I'm so amped. And I reckon so many girls listening could relate. I can relate. My mum can relate if we think about, like she spoke about this as well. It's just so refreshing to have the break. And then when you know it's coming, if you do have it scheduled on the other side of the gaining phase, you're just so amped and ready to do it. And for myself, I'm so far into this side note, guys, but who cares? For myself, when I go into a deficit or a fat loss phase, I've said this before in the podcast, I am literally like a robot. Like nothing gets in the way. I will usually have 12 to 16 weeks, however long I end up doing, of like perfectly tracked calorie deficit. Like nothing gets in the way. And I would credit that so much to the amount of time I spend out of the deficit. For me, the deficit is so short, sharp, direct, effective. Everyone fuck off. I'm on a diet. Get out of the way. Watch me go. Like that is literally my energy. And I think that energy gets built during all the time that you spend out of it. So I'm going to rein it back in. But my original point here was going into a gaining phase. This is my note, guys. Going into a gaining phase, freaking out and pulling yourself back into a deficit. That is one of the main muscle gain, like mistakes I see in the muscle gain phase, is just not settling into the process and therefore pulling yourself in and out based on emotions. And this is where I know Mum and I spoke about it, but I'm going to reiterate it again. This is where I think it is so beneficial to have something in place, whether it's a coach, a program, a structure, whatever it is for you, having something in place to intercept on those emotional days. We're all going to have them. I personally have them. Like mum said she had them. We spoke about the gaining phase we did in Eat Like Ruby last year. All the girls have them, and you come in and you're just like, yep, I'm not feeling it today. I'm feeling fluffy. I'm feeling fat. The scales are fuckwit, whatever it is you want to say on the day. And then to have someone who isn't going through those emotions with you, be able to look at it from an outside point of view and just be like, okay, what are the facts? What are the science? What do we know is actually happening here? What is the end goal here? It's so common, and really that just ties into the main point I'm trying to make here. It is so common to forget your end goal when your emotions kick in. And I just think making sure you have something in place that is going to tap in and take over and have it say when your emotions are also having their say. I just think that is so important and so beneficial in this process. And I think mum said it as well, especially if you haven't really done it before. I personally am actually taking myself into a gaining phase right now without a coach, without a program, but I'm also coaching 20 chicks to do it as well, which is so cool because I'm going to be right there with them. But there's no way I would have done that 5 or 10 years ago when I was still learning all of this stuff. This is actually the first time I'm putting myself in an intentional surplus without a coach or program or anything in place. But when you haven't done it before, you're going through all of this stuff for the first time and you're experiencing all this for the first time. I think making sure you've got the support network in place is just so important. And on to my next point, guys. It kind of ties in a little bit with that last one. But what I've got here is, I'm just reading my notes, only watching the scale. The scale does not tell us about muscle gain, etc. We've spoken about this so much. We talk about scale and we talk about this exact thing when we're looking at fat loss. It's exactly the same here. The scale will not tell us if we are gaining muscle or fat or if we're losing muscle or fat. It literally is just the sum of the mass of every single thing in your body. So there's so many things that are going to make that up. If we are in a muscle gaining phase, if we hop on and the scale has gone up, there's no way of us being like, is that muscle? Is that fat? What do I do from here? So like I said in the note here, one of the big mistakes we see is only watching the scale. I feel like I've spoken about this in recent weeks as well, but if we think about what I just said, where the scale is not going to give us the information we want to have the best systems in place to get that information that we want. And I think without a doubt, the best thing here is pictures, because we have to remember we are not doing a gaining phase for most people. We're not doing a gaining phase to see the scale go up. That's not our end goal. That's not our point. Our point is to change the physique. So it's an absolute no-brainer to actually monitor the physique. And that's what I just think is so important. And it's exactly the same in fat loss. If you've got a fat loss goal, we've done the scale weight episode, we've spoken about all those things. Your actual goal is not to see the scale go down. Your goal is to change your physique. Watch the physique. The scale is literally the middleman in this situation. And it is one piece of the assessment process, but it is one piece. And there are so many other pieces. So we see this, it's so common with fat loss where people just watch the scale and we harp on and on and on about watching the other things. To only watch the scale in a muscle gain phase would honestly just be dumb. I don't feel like anyone would do it because it just doesn't make sense when we think about the goal and what we're trying to work towards. And the reason I said it kind of ties in with that last point is if you are only watching the scale and you do see it go up, and then the emotions kick in and you pull yourself out of the gaining phase and you go back to the deficit and all those things, purely based on the scale, it's just not smart at all. So you really want to have those assessment methods in place. Like I said, the number one, in my opinion, being pics. And then I think the real winning combo here is having the pics, watching the pics, also watching measurement. I've said this recently, but if we watch measurements, we should see gradual increases on things like legs, especially maybe booty, maybe hips, a little bit on the arms. And the midsection and other things will gradually go up over time as well, because we know there will be some level of body fat accumulation in a gaining phase. But they're really going to help us see where we're gaining and at what rate we're gaining. If your belly button measurement is going up by 2 centimeters a week, obviously we've kind of missed the mark there, because in 10 weeks you're going to have 20 centimeters more on your stomach. That's no one's goal in a gaining phase. If we're watching those, and like I said, it's very slow, it's very gradual, and we're also noticing legs and booty and all these things are going up as well. That's perfect. That's awesome. And then we look at pics and we start to think like, oh, I can see a little bit of quads. I can see my glutes going. I can see my shoulders coming through a little bit. We can piece that whole assessment together and then really know, are we actually gaining in the way that we want? And again, this is where having an outside source make that assessment, because if we look at all those things, the pics, the measurements, all of it, any of it, when we're having an emotional day, when we're being a little bit of a female, I don't want to discriminate against females in this scenario, but we all can relate. We all know the thing. If you have a day where you're not feeling it and you look at those things, it's so common to overanalyze, overthink, fuck, should I change the plan? Should I just go back on a diet? What am I doing? All of these things kick in, like I just said in that last point. That is where I think the winning combo, like I said, is having multiple forms of assessment in place and having someone who is not emotionally attached to them make that assessment. That is one of the key things in a gaining phase, I think. And there's one more thing I had on my list, and that is I don't feel like this is, I don't know. I was going to say I don't feel like this is too common anymore because none of my girls do it, but there could still be a lot of people doing this. I feel like I get caught up in the Eat Like Ruby world and I'm like, we're all perfect and we do everything awesome and no one makes mistakes anymore. But people could definitely still be doing this. But the last point I had there is going into a surplus or a gaining phase or going onto higher calories and then getting a little too loose and being like, I've got all these high calories, I'm living the dream, I'll eat whatever the fuck I want, and then starting to feel quite shitty quite quickly. And even if we think about all of the other points tying in together, if we were to be too loose and take the like, quote, high calories too high and too far, and then start to see scale and all of these things go up and then start to have an emotional reaction, again, pretty quickly we pull ourselves out of that. When really, if we think about that particular scenario, if you've set a calorie intake that's a little bit of a surplus or it's the high end of maintenance or whatever, but then you're super loose and you're super chilled and you're eating a fair bit more than that, and then you're seeing things move in a way that you didn't want them to move, and then you're having an emotional reaction and pulling yourself back into a deficit, saying like the underlying thing there is we're sort of saying like, oh, the muscle gaining phase didn't work, it was too hard, I was getting fat, I was feeling like shit, whatever, when it wasn't the actual gaining phase that wasn't working because you weren't adhering to what you should be adhering to with that gaining phase. So I hope that made sense, but that's a really important thing to clock, especially there may be some people that can relate to doing that in the past. Have you gone onto higher calories, then become super chilled on top of those higher calories, then blamed, quote, high calories made me feel like shit, so I had to run back to my deficit, but you weren't actually hitting that calorie intake that you've set in the first place. And I think this is really common. I'm probably going to go off a little bit here, but I think this is super common where people then can form a connection in their mind of like, I only feel good when I'm in a deficit, when I'm pursuing fat loss, when I'm on low calories. Because if every time we go onto high calories, we then take it too far and we spiral and we start to feel like shit, we run back to the deficit almost as like a safety net. We really create this loop and then this belief of like, I only feel good when I'm on the low calories. Every time I come up and go into higher calories, I feel like shit. But the underlying thing there is because I spiral and I take it too far and I get too chilled and I get too loose. So we really want to clock that. And if you can relate, or if you do think like, no, I don't want to go onto high calories, I don't want to come out of a deficit, I don't want to go to maintenance, I don't want to do any of these things because it never ends well. Is it that actual intake that isn't ending well, or is it sloppy habits that start to come into play alongside that intake that make us feel like crap and then we feel like we need to run back to the deficit? And that's really common. I've definitely spoken about this in so many ways before, but it's super common for people to be very strict, very intense, very robotic almost in a deficit. And then when they move up to maintenance, it's almost like, oh, I've got these extra calories, I've got this wiggle room, and then take it too far and feel quite shitty. And I think there's a real common theme there where people are almost like, I can't wait to go to maintenance. I can't wait to eat more. I can't wait for my like quote diet to be over. Then when they do it, it's a little bit loose. It's not robotic like the deficit. And then they do feel a bit crappy about it. So they feel that safety net with the deficit and they want to run back there. If you can relate to that, again, you're definitely not alone. I speak about these things because I see them all the time. But this is where I think it's cool to put yourself in a program or a structure or something where we know about all these things and we're also being held to the standard and the goal. It almost comes back to like what I said before. If we had an end goal to pursue muscle gain, yet we feel like we can't get the habits and the routines and everything in place to actually optimize that goal, our emotions kick in. We think, nope, this is shit, this is hard, I'm bad at this, whatever it might be. So we pull ourselves out of it. We've disregarded the end goal and we've forgotten that we did have this big end goal to do this phase. If you can relate to that, it's almost like everything else I've just said, where having someone who isn't having an emotional day step in and be like, remember how you had this gaining goal? Remember how we know we still want some good consistency and adherence and intensity and all of the things while we're on this higher calorie intake. Remember, we're monitoring progress over time, not overnight. Remember, we're not changing the whole plan because of your emotions. All of these things, I've literally had these conversations millions of times in my life. They're so common, but I think it almost just sums up the whole episode and ties everything in together. If we can get the right support network in place and then get the structure and the plan in place alongside that to actually work towards our bigger end goal, we have everything in line and in place to navigate the ups and downs, the highs and lows, the good days, the bad days, the emotions, all of those things. And we can actually transcend a lot of that shit that might have been keeping us in these loops and these cycles for a long time and feeling like we're spinning our wheels. If we can actually go through these things, but be in the room with people to be like, yo, this is what's coming up for me. This is actually what corkbox me every time and makes me run back to my deficit. Let's work through it. That is an absolute game changer because like I said, you do transcend it. You keep going as opposed to maybe all the other times in your life where you stopped and pulled the pin and done the 180. If you can keep going, this could be the first time in your life that you actually really work towards that end goal that you might have had for years, but you've been stuck in all these loops that has been stopping you from getting there. So that is all from me today. I feel like that was a bit of a Ruby rant, but I think it needed to be said. And I think it's just cool for people. Like I said, you're kind of going to know if all of this stuff appeals to you or not. If it does and you're thinking of dabbling in the Eat Like Ruby gaining phase, I would love to have you. Like always, obviously there's a bit of a delay between recording and releasing episodes. So right now it is still open. It is still like spots available. It is an application process just so we can make sure it is the right fit for you. But it starts in a couple of weeks. Towards the end of April, we are starting. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down on the Muscle Gain Chat, then definitely apply for that one. But even if you don't and you're thinking of dabbling in the gains, just really take into account everything that I've said and make sure you've got the right support and the right systems in place to really optimize it and work towards it. I'd honestly just love to see more gals getting after the gains. And I think working through a lot of the things I've just mentioned in this episode is really some of the key steps towards really starting to work towards it. So I'm excited. I'm excited for my gaining phase and the Eat Like Ruby gaining phase and anyone else out there getting after the gains in winter. But that is all from me today. I will be back next week. But like always, guys, if you like this episode, please share it to your Instagram stories, tag Eat Like Ruby, tag the Eat Like Ruby podcast, and follow the Eat Like Ruby podcast if you are not already. We love seeing you guys listening and like hearing what you learned from the episode, what you gained from the episode. I would love to know. So please do that. But in the meantime, we'll be back next week.